Now, our next speaker is Professor Will Mitchell from the Rotman School of Management in Canada.
What a delight. And Professor Ashraf, thank you so much. Dubai Exports, thank you so much for the time, for hosting us and for sharing your wisdom with us. And I really have a lot of thank yous. I mean, with the time we've spent with F&B has been really outstanding for us, both here on site and in the several months that we spent in interacting with Wahid and the team across the F&B group. Has really been an outstanding opportunity for us at Rotman to learn. And I mean, what the conversation we've had this morning has already sparked something that has really struck us over the time we've spent in preparing for this and then in being here, which is really how amazingly dynamic this city and this country is. The notion of a 10x, and not just the words about a 10x, but the expectation, the real expectation and the credible expectation that Dubai will deliver on the 10x is a really powerful model for us. Something that we can learn a lot from and are learning a lot from. And in turn, I hope that some of the insights that our students have developed in looking at this and thinking about this may be valuable and may actually help contribute to achieving the 10x and achieving the goals of the F&B group and of the city and the country more generally. And this is really, of course, this is the power of international engagement, of us having the opportunity to learn from you in Dubai, and hopefully being able to contribute something to growth in Dubai and success in Dubai as well. So thank you so much for the time and the effort and the insights that you provided for us. I'm going to do a little bit of framing, and as Dr. Ashraf said, that the temptation for any academic is to talk for a long time. We're both very capable of doing this, and I admire.
Oh no, I'm a man of humorous.
And I admire your restraint, and I will use that as a model. I will sort of frame about 4 points, four points, and then Satish will sort of lay out some background on the platform, and my colleagues from Rotman will spend some time discussing what they've learned. And I will say, this will be led by my colleague Okuya Ojiaka and Fatima Sayed. Will lead the discussion and bring together the rest of our colleagues in the presentation. So first, just a very quick point, and this is reinforcing something that several of us have said. We know that every industry is moving into the digital economy. We don't know how, in many cases, but we know it's going to happen, just unambiguously. And it doesn't matter whether it's taxis that are being disrupted, or hotels that are being disrupted, or trading that's being disrupted, or food that's being disrupted. Things will be disrupted. And we have a choice. You know, we can view it, for those of us in any sector, we can view it as a threat, and we can hunker down and try to live through and hope that we retire before it really affects us. Or we can embrace it and treat it as an opportunity. And in this country, I don't have to make the point about opportunity. This is a country that has embraced opportunities over the last 70 years in an astounding way. And it's one of the forefronts of being able to take advantage and drive forward with the digital economy. And the power of the digital economy, of course, is that it offers us opportunities to create new customer value. You know, and I'm a strategist, and my job is to find ways of creating customer value. And at Root, there's really only 3 ways of doing it. We can be cheaper, we can be different, and we can innovate so we can be cheaper and different in the future. Right? And we can make it really complicated, but at Root, the basis of competitive advantage in the digital economy is just a way of creating new competitive advantage. It's to find ways to drive down costs, create value that customers don't already have, and to keep doing it over and over and over again. And the cool thing, the powerful thing is, as we spend time looking at F&B, the retailers, the manufacturers, others in the sector, got agencies that are involved, the food bank, is there's real power, real opportunity in creating new customer value in the space by embracing and engaging with the digital economy, with the platforms. So that's the first point. And the second point I want to make is as I think about IT-enabled markets, right? In markets that are enabled by information technology. There's at least, you can think of 3 ways of doing this. We'll call one a dominant actor model. You know, Amazon, Uber, Airbnb are essentially dominant actors. There's one firm driving that part of the market. Second is what I'll call pairwise partnerships. You know, an example of that would be Johnson & Johnson working together with Walmart in their consumer business to develop IT solutions that cross the 2 firms, and those 2 firms work together as a pair. And then try to create competitive advantage for each other, and especially for themselves, but focally within the sector. And then a third model I'll call multilateral partnerships, right? So rather than just bilateral partnerships, think about multilateral partnerships involving multiple firms. And an example of that in my world is McKesson, the pharmaceutical distribution company, working with multiple pharmaceutical companies in the US and Europe and globally to develop platforms and develop sort of an industry base that they can use to do more effective distribution of pharmaceutical and logistics in the pharmaceutical market. And the model that we focused on for the last few months, and that you've introduced us to here, of course, is a multilateral partnership model. And there's advantages and disadvantages to each of the models, but the wonderful thing about the potential of the multilateral partnership model is that it brings in the opportunity for many firms to engage. Many existing firms, and ultimately many new firms as well. And of course they're going to compete, and they have to compete. But it creates a base, a platform, a base that many can operate from. So if you think about the multilateral partnership model, it's an intriguing opportunity. It's also complicated, right? I mean, the value of a dominant model is, Travis Cohen says, this is what we're going to do. Some people say yes, some people say no, but he drives it. Or Airbnb says this is what we're going to do. Or, you put two partners together, Walmart and Johnson & Johnson, they're big enough they can kind of drive them where they're going to go. And they can do it by themselves. Multilateral, multiple partnerships is complicated. And that's where the notion of the need for the value chain comes in. The coordinator, in my language, the value chain integrator, that helps identify the value, helps work with the partners, helps shape the way the system works. And so in this model, the need for a value chain integrator is really high. And the value chain integrator faces some really powerful choices. And think about, one of them is the value chain integrator a competitor? Something like, say, Amazon's third-party markets. Because Amazon sells products, it also creates a third-party market that others can be involved in. And that's a competitor-led model. An alternative to that is what I'll call a neutral IT model. There's a neutral operator of an IT platform that's not competing with its customers, not competing with its partners, but is the driver, the honest broker that shapes and drives the nature of the market. And I do some work in Apple and health these days. And Apple is starting to develop a really strong presence in the US and ultimately the global healthcare market. In fact, Apple could turn into one of the world's leading healthcare companies. I mean, it's essentially doing that as a neutral IT provider. And if you think of Apple being neutral, it's actually a stunning idea. Because they're not neutral ever. But in health, they actually are. And they're working with very powerful, very strong partners and shaping the nature of the emerging electronic-based healthcare market. So that's one choice. Is it competitor-led or is it neutral IT? A second is does it focus on aggregating small players? Uber is an example of that, right? Uber just basically aggregates individuals, one driver at a time, and puts them into a system. Or does it try to create value for a bigger mix of players? Small players, big players, try to have a sophisticated enough system that very large players can get advantages from it, and some basic systems that small players can cut into it. And that's more complicated, having that heterogeneity. But it's also potentially more powerful. Because any industry does have, in fact should have, a variety of players in it to cover different parts of the market. And then the third choice is, does it focus primarily on a domestic market? Or does it as quickly as possible get to having an export opportunities as well? And very few of us have the luxury of being just single country players. I can't think of any industry anymore, even in big countries like the US. There can be a US firm, or Canada, can be a Canadian firm, or Dubai, to be only a Dubai firm. We have to compete globally. And so the intriguing thing for us over the last few months has been sort of thinking through this model, which essentially has emerged as it's a neutral IT. It's a model that has a neutral IT platform, has potential for valuable for multiple players, and players of very different sizes, very different skills, that together form a really powerful ecosystem, and has the potential to get to export very quickly, not just to be one country, but to be at least regional and ultimately global fairly quickly. And so that's a powerful system if it can work. And again, coming back to the notion of the value chain integrator, it absolutely has to have somebody who sort of helps understand and shape the notion of the value, the understanding of value in the market, and helps shape the way that partners work together. They're not taking the responsibility for each individual partner. That's their job. For each of us in this room, it is our job to run our businesses to understand our customers, to drive value for our customers. But the value chain integrator can help see the opportunities and help make the ecosystem work together. And so what we have in this case is essentially a value chain integrator that's a combination of F&B group and working in partnership with SunPair. And that's the potential in this space. And so my fourth point, my last point, is what does it take? What are the needs to make this work? Right? And as we've looked at this, three high-level things have come through. And the students, my colleagues, can talk in somewhat more detail. And again, I want to reinforce the point that Dr. Ashad made at the beginning. We're at the problem definition stage of this project. And those of you who've done design thinking and done work through this know that the problem, what's the temptation? Define the problems or come up with solutions. What's more fun? Defining problems or coming up with solutions? And how many of us have come up with the wrong solution because we didn't spend enough time defining the problem?
Everybody knows.
We're in the problem definition stage. And the problem definition stage might be as much as 95% of the work. Because you get the problem right, the solutions usually fall out. And so we are, as you said, very, very accurate. Now, I will say, I enjoy the journey, but I also enjoy the solution. And it's my job, in fact, to help us get to not just the journey, and it is part of my job to help us enjoy the journey, but it is my job as well to get us to the solution. So I hope that the work we're doing and that my colleagues are going to be talking about will help us get to the solution. But this is the problem definition stage. And as I think about the needs that a value chain integrator in this space has to provide and has to work with, there's at least three. One of them is a reliable platform, right? The technology has to work. Now, that's not a differentiator. There's lots of companies around the world that can provide a reliable platform. But it's got to work. It's the floor. You've got to walk on it and not even see it. It's just there. But again, that's the table stakes. That gets us into the game. It doesn't differentiate. Second, and this is fundamental, is it had the VCI and the partnership with the VCI across the ecosystem has to have a really deep understanding of the customer value. And two types of customer value, right? One is the value to the end customer. Because ultimately this is about delivering goods and services and value to people who are paying their time and their money and their passion to bring goods home. And so the value chain integrator system needs to have a deep understanding of what ultimately the end customer is paying for. And in an ecosystem, it's not enough just to know the end customer. You've got to know the value of each of the stakeholders in the ecosystem. Right? Because each of them has to engage, has to be willing to engage. And they're not engaging just because it's good for the system. They're engaging because it's good for them. How does this create a cost advantage for any player? How does it create a differentiation advantage for any player? How does it help any player innovate? And the drivers of the system, the shapers of the system, the orchestrators of the system, actually have to have a pretty deep understanding of that. And that can be a cost advantage, it can be a differentiation advantage, some combination of that, but a really deep shared understanding of that. So platform, reliable, deep understanding of end value, deep understanding of stakeholder value, and it needs to know what the minimum viable network is. Right? What's it going to take? I'm going to use that phrase, the minimum viable network. Because this is one where you don't get all the way right from the beginning, but you got to have enough players early on to make it worthwhile. And so it's got to be enough players at different stages to engage in it, to be able to get to the tipping point where it takes off. Right? And again, as Dr. Schrapp said, we're in the problem definition stage. We're in the stage of figuring out what the nature of the technology needs to be, what the value is, and for the end customer, what the value is for the stakeholders, who needs to be involved to make it work. But I will say, it's been. I travel a lot. I fly through my favorite airport in the world fairly regularly here in Dubai. On my favorite airline in the world, it's Emirates. And I come into the city occasionally. And this is the first time I've spent more than a few hours here. But it's stunning being here. And the combination of the passion for driving forward and the ability to execute, the discipline to be able to actually do something with that passion and that vision and execute is really powerful. I mean, you know that, you live here. And for those of us who are visiting, it's really wonderful to see. And this is a space where that combination of a vision for shaping and this sector, the F&B sector, the food and beverage sector, and delivering on the ability to make this not just a country sector, not just a regional sector, but ultimately a global sector, is really exciting. And so it's for us to be the opportunity to spend time with you, learning from you, perhaps contributing a few insights, is really a wonderful opportunity. And thank you so much. And Satish, I'm very much looking forward to your comment.
Thanks for this great opportunity here. I think there has been a very good pretext being said in the last couple of days, and what Professor just talked about. The whole concept of the whole industry that's been moving forward in the last 2 decades is from an individual play. Companies, enterprise, organization, countries were running more individual. They were doing stuff which was very unique to them. They were building products, services, marketing them effectively, and had a share of their customers, which was very individual. Subsequently, they started realizing that it's not going to be any more individual, but we need to start working with partners. And they slowly started expanding beyond their horizon and started partnering with a couple of players in that space and started expanding what they were offering to the market. What's happening right now in the last 10 plus years is Google, Amazon, Facebook, Airbnb, and Apple, which is the last day is typically taken as Apple in the Gulf economics. So the way in which they turn the whole industry from the service that they have been offering. So there is no more concept of product and services, right? So today it's coming to an aspect that the whole industry is about the largest brand name in the market is one which owns the maximum amount of customers. And how do you own the maximum amount of customers today is in terms of showing the value that you could create for this customer. And the whole concept of any of these top 4 players that you've listed here, the whole concept about the way in which they've approached the whole problem is about seeing how could they start serving 1 billion customers and above. None of the corporations or the industry that we saw in the last few decades have been able to get to this kind of a scale of customer base. And platformification, which was what the Gulf economics have taken up, is what has driven this 1 billion customer base. And it's no more products and services, no more 4P. It's all about how do I bring value to my customer. The FLW protocol implementation, which is something that FMP is also working on, is something that's purely looking at connecting this whole ecosystem in a much more on a real-time basis, right? So the moment when we talk about real-time basis, then it's no more sequential. How would you drive a real-time sequence in this to kind of reduce your food loss and wastage? The whole platform idea is about getting an insight from top down, which is your consumer or the customer. The moment I know what my customer is consuming, what quantity, what point in time, what kind of patterns, then I start drawing the the platform below, which is like what kind of raw materials do I take, what kind of manufacturing do I make, at what point in time I will bring it, and hence the whole concept of reducing the food wastage or the consumption patterns gets much more clearer. So the platform drives the whole insights about what your customers are, and it goes to customer downward rather than manufacturing whatever they want to manufacture and force it into the market. And then there is obviously a wastage of that because customers, they don't know what the customers really want in most scenarios. So the whole platform then goes into having a clear insight, which is what I'll talk about in the next slide. I go to the next slide. If you really look at it, the whole data platform, the data platform verification that we talked about, it could be in the food industry, it could be in retail, it could be in financial service, it could be any industry that we talk about. It's all about having an insight about what the customer demands.